care? Why must startups care? I'll deal with it in a more broad manner than in a specific manner, so that no matter who is participating in this discussion, they'll find something that they can use. So we know that in Ghana and in many parts of Africa, whenever we have elections in any year, the whole year is declared an election year. So much of the discourse and everything that goes on throughout the year is centered on elections. So, but in some countries, that is not the case. So how come that in our parts of the world, an activity that happens once a year or once in 4 years or one day out of about 365 days, why should it dominate our thoughts the whole time? And I guess it's because of the experience of other African nations. We've seen that many African nations have been plunged into unrests because of elections. And all the countries that surround us, for us in Ghana, all the countries that surround us, Cote d'Ivoire in the west, Burkina Faso in the north, Togo in the east, they've all had challenges because of elections. If you go to other countries, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Egypt, Madagascar, and so on, they've had all kinds of issues with elections. And normally when these issues happen, almost everything in the country comes to a standstill, and it affects people who are in business and all that. So I think one of the reasons for this obsession is because of what we see happen in other countries. So elections become a big deal. And then also, if you look at the political history of Ghana, you look at our situation in Ghana, since we gained independence, we were never able to change any government through elections until the year 2000. So from 1957, we were never able to change any government through the ballot box until President Kufuor won the election against then Vice President Mills. So prior to then, all the elected governments we had, President Nkrumah, Prime Minister Buzia, and then President Liman, they were all overthrown by the military. And in between, we had a lot of military experiments on our governance. So because of that, we normally get jittery and anxious every time elections are at hand. And although since we entered the Fourth Republic in '92, we have had a high measure of stability. We are still working together, putting together the building blocks we need to build a stable democracy and a stable country. So I personally believe that one of the reasons why it seems Ghana has not made much progress since independence is because of the series of military interventions we have had in our governance. So if you look at the Fourth Republic, for example, you've seen that we've made quite some progress. We've made progress in education and infrastructure, in economic growth, social inclusion, women empowerment, and gender parity, and as well as even in poverty reduction. The only reason why sometimes we feel that we are way far behind is because we look at it from 1957, since we gained independence. But if you look at it from '92, I think we've made some reasonable progress. So anytime we have elections, it's such a big deal. Government is very powerful. It's a vehicle that we use to shapes and implements policies on our behalf. And it has custody of our national resources, and they maintain the security of our nation. So any process or activity that seeks to determine the people who lead government or who run the government has become such a big deal. So for young people and entrepreneurs, we cannot and we should not, we must never shy away from elections and issues about elections, because the elections actually somehow influence the fortunes of your business. It influences the fortunes of your business. So if you are young, by the grace of God, you are going to live to experience the future. And also, any business that is a startup today also looks forward to the prospect of growth, which is going to manifest in the future. So if your business is a startup today, in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, it will not be a startup anymore. Every major business we have in our world today was once a startup. So your startup is also going to become a major enterprise. And we know that when we have elections, elections are not just about today, elections is about tomorrow. Elections determine what is going to happen in the future, because when you vote for a government, they are going to implement policies that will affect your reality tomorrow. So what we do today determines what happens tomorrow. So it's very important that when you are a startup or an entrepreneur, you are able to understand and observe and even participate in the political environment and in what happens, be aware of what happens or what is going on in the political discourse. The venerable Kofi Annan, I think this is the Mandela March, and I'm told we start with Kofi Annan in April and we end with Mandela in July. So I'll quote something from Kofi Annan. Maybe later on I'll say something from Mandela as well. So Kofi Annan once told young people that the future belongs to you. So he was speaking to young people and said, the future belongs to you, but it can only belong to you if you participate and take charge. The future belongs to you, but it can only belong to you if you participate and take charge. So the future we are building our startups for, the startups we are building today is going to grow, and we'll see the manifestation of the growth, the reality of the growth, the realization of the growth in the future. But that future will only happen if we take charge of things today, because what we are doing today is a foundation for the roof we are going to have tomorrow. So if you are a startup or a young person, this is the time to participate and take charge of the future you expect. And it begins from now. So if you really care so much about your business, if you love your future, then, and if you want to belong to the future, then you don't have to be passive. If the environment we build or we grow up in or we want to build our businesses in is not peaceful, we are not going to have the peace of mind to be able to thrive. We are not going to have the peace of mind to be able to thrive. So in participating in politics and in governance and in elections and ensuring that there is peace in the atmosphere, in the system for us to, can everybody hear me? Are we having an issue with our recording, with our audio? Manuel?
It's okay. It's okay. We can hear you.
Okay, because I saw a note, so I wanted to be sure that I am communicating well.
Yeah,
okay, so very briefly. Okay, so very briefly, and we'll wrap up because our time is gone and I have another engagement. So very briefly, I want to share about 7 ways by which, as young people or as startup entrepreneurs, how we can effectively participate in the discourse on elections and on governance and on politics and democracy in our country, so that we can protect the space, the democratic space we have for our businesses to thrive. Because if we don't protect that and we follow the path of instability, we will not have any room to build the businesses we want to build. So the first thing I will talk about is inspired by Nelson Mandela, and I would say that we have to leave the darkness of ignorance. If you want to participate effectively, you want to help maintain the peace of our democratic system, as a young person or as a startup entrepreneur, you have to leave the darkness of ignorance. The greatest enemy of the poor is ignorance. So for our participation in governance and in the affairs of our country and of our continent and of our world to be meaningful, we must fully embrace the power of education. Nelson Mandela aptly put it this way. He says that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world, unquote. we cannot change Africa, we cannot change Ghana with ignorance. So if we want to transform our businesses, if we want to transform our country and our continent, and if we also want to preserve the peace that we currently have and even enhance and consolidate the peace that we have, we the people, we the young people, we should also have an unquenchable appetite for knowledge, knowledge that edifies. We must know the knowledge that we need, the laws that we need to run our enterprises by. We must know our rights, and we have to enforce the things we know and we believe to be right. So one of the best things an entrepreneur can do is to be able to have a paradigm and a lifestyle that constantly searches for ideas and information that are relevant to the times we live in and the future we want to have. This will enable us to prioritize what is important, and it will also help us to make the right demands and to advocate for the right policies that will facilitate the growth of our business. So the first one I have said here is that we have to leave the darkness of ignorance. Number two, the second thing we can do very briefly is that we must love and promote freedom of speech. We must love and promote freedom of speech. One of the most pathetic things that can happen to anybody, any entrepreneur, any young person is when they cannot speak, when they lose their voice, when their voice is taken away from them. So we need an atmosphere of liberty, because if we don't build such an atmosphere, it will be very difficult for us to participate effectively. You cannot even dream, because you know that the moment you dream and you attempt to work on your dreams, somebody is going to come after you. So we have to work on that. So we should always be bold to stand up and never encourage any law or position or posture that seeks to limit free speech. When you disagree with someone, or when someone disagrees with you, you don't have to respond with insults. You don't have to respond with insult. You just have to be able to speak your opinion. And on the other hand, when somebody attacks you for having an opinion, don't be intimidated. We need to continue to push the frontiers of free speech. So two things I've said about how we can effectively participate. Number one is that we have to leave the darkness of ignorance. Number two is that we have to love and promote the freedom of speech. The third thing I will say is that we also need to be able to, it's still connected to freedom of speech, but I will say that we have to also leverage traditional and new media channels. Traditional and new media channels. So when there is free speech, the media becomes very accessible. It becomes a useful instrument for participation in governance. So when you have the chance to phone in into a radio or a TV program, you don't have to repudiate or use that opportunity to insult people just because they are doing something or they are saying things you don't agree with. We have to use such an opportunity to express our important ideas so that there will be peace. Because when people talk and you attack them, or when you talk and you are attacked, eventually it is going to keep a lot of things bottled up. And when it explodes, we will not be able to contain it. It's going to create a whole complicated situation for us to deal with. And we saw what happened in the Arab Spring, where countries that for a long time, for decades, people couldn't speak their minds because of politics, because of government. People couldn't speak their minds. One day they got tired and the whole place, the whole region exploded. Egypt, Tunisia, Sudan. We've seen Sudan, Algeria. We've seen Syria is still ongoing, and Yemen and all those places, because for a long time people did not have the freedom of speech. And so imagine if you were running a business in such countries, how are you going to run your business now? What is going to happen to you if you have a business in such an environment? There will be no opportunity for you to continue to go. So that is why this issue of peace is so important. And for us in Ghana, every election is an important part of our peace building process. And so we have to take it very seriously. we've seen how, let me give this example. I think in 2019, somewhere last year, information came up that Parliament wanted to build a new chamber for $200 million. And people used social media, just social media, to get Parliament to stop, just by coming up with the hashtag, drop that chamber, and Parliament and the politicians decided to stop. So for those of us who are also startups or entrepreneurs or young people, we can also leverage tools like that, social media or even traditional media, to advocate for policies that will create an enabling environment of peace and for growth and sustainability and for the development of our businesses. So 3 things I've said about how we can participate to make democracy work and to have an environment where startups can thrive, and how we also actively participate in governance. Leave the darkness of ignorance, love and promote freedom of speech, and then we leverage traditional and new media channels. 4 more, then I'll be done with my very brief presentation. The other thing that we should consider is civil society. Civil society. We have to lend our support to civil society organizations because they also play an important role in our society. Some of the civil society groups we have ideas that, if they are able to effectively promote and force and influence policy, government policy, eventually they are going to benefit the businesses we are trying to build. So think tanks, professional associations, academic institutions, and advocacy groups are crucial to ensuring that governance is delivered effectively and in the interest of the people. So many of such organizations are able to dig deep and present fresh ideas on insights that are of public interest and sometimes also of interest to businesses and to startups. So to support such organizations, simple things we can do to support such organizations are we have to show interest in their work by studying their publications, participating in events they do, and sometimes when we make some small money from our business, we can donate to facilitate their work, because think tanks rely on donations to thrive and survive. Most civil society groups. And then when we have information that we think will be helpful and useful to them, we should also be free enough to share with them. Because once we have a very good space for civil society organizations to work, it eventually helps us. It helps us to create that kind of environment of accountability. And if they are influential, it contributes to the peace building process of our countries. So it's very important. I think we know some very good think tanks in Ghana. We know about Imani. Imani, for example, every year or every time there are elections, they dig deep into the manifestos of the various political parties so that they enlighten us about the viability of some of the ideas that are being put forward. And if you are a business person, if you are a startup person, and you have to take a look at what is happening in elections, and you want to even make a decision about who to vote for and who not to vote for, one of the ways to get informed opinions is to follow the work of some of these civil society organizations. Currently, I know another one, CDD, Ghana Center for Democratic Development, is doing a project that involves influencing. They call it a project called Manifesto for Development. So they are advocating for politicians and political parties to come up with manifestos that advance the development interests of our country. And whatever politicians do, it affects the businesses we do, sometimes directly, other times indirectly. So some of the work that these civil society organizations do help us a lot to get the needed environment and support we need to thrive and to grow our businesses. And then number 5, we also have to learn to engage our elected representatives. We have to learn to engage them. Normally, when they are looking for votes, they are able to engage us directly. They come to our offices, our workplaces, they come to our places of worship, sometimes they come to our schools. And so just as they are able to engage us directly when they are seeking office, we must also not shy away from them when they are in office. So when we engage them, we are able to participate also in governance. When we meet them at public events, such as funerals and weddings, we must take opportunities to engage them on issues that are of concern to our businesses. If you meet your MP, you have to engage him on what bills he's supporting in Parliament to enhance the business environment. What are they doing about credit? What are they doing about inflation? What are they doing about fiscal responsibility? How government spends money? Because the way government spends affects prices of goods and services in the country. What are they advocating for startups? And we often talk about the need for capital and all that. What laws are they passing to sanitize the financial system, the banking system, for example, so that we can have easy access to credit? Those are the kind of conversations we must have with our elected representatives. Let me ask a question. When was the last time, or have you ever written a letter to your MP or your municipal or district chief executive or your assemblyman or assemblywoman, asking them about something that is of interest to you and to your business? Once in a while, you have to visit Parliament, for example, to follow the debates. Recently, the finance minister in Ghana presented a budget review and came up and hinted or highlighted some policies that government is going to do to enhance, to help us recover from the effects of COVID-19. As a business person, as a startup person, have you taken time to look at some of those proposals? Do you think they will benefit your business? And if they will, how are you positioning yourself to benefit from them? But these are some of the ways by which we directly benefit from governance, and we participate in governance to make our future promising. And then number 6, closely related to the last point I just made, listen to the news. It's very important that we listen to the news and we know what is going on. Because if you don't listen to the news, if you don't watch current affairs talk shows, then on what basis are you going to participate in what is happening around? How do you protect the peace that we have? What role can you play if you don't know what is happening or what is going on? And then the last thing I would say before I wrap up, number 7, which is something I should have even said first, is that you have to live as a responsible citizen. Live as a responsible citizen. So living as a responsible citizen, that is something that I should have said first, but I have to say it last, because if you can't do everything I've said if you are not a responsible citizen, or if you do everything I've said and you still are not a responsible citizen, then everything else you do wouldn't matter. So for us, if you are a business person and you earn some income, you have to begin to keep your books well. And Dr. Fiado spoke about some of the things that businesses must do to keep their books clean and all that. That is part of being a responsible citizen, keeping very good financial records and all that, so that you can pay your taxes and so that you can be productive and you can increase your productivity. So whatever you are doing, you just have to commit to doing it well. Be a law-abiding citizen. If every citizen lives by the law, there will be so much order in our country and in our continent. If we have good and law-abiding citizens, we are definitely most likely going to have good leadership, because good citizens elect good leaders, and good leaders or good citizens become good leaders. The leaders we have, we are producing them or electing them from among ourselves. So if we have a good citizenry, then we are likely to elect good leaders. Or if you have a good citizenry, then the people who become leaders will be good. And because the citizens are even participating in governance and in leadership, we are going to bring our influence to bear on our leaders to make sure that they are good. So in summary, all the things I've said about participating in elections as young people and as startups. Number 1, I said that you have to leave the darkness of ignorance. Number 2, I said that we have to love and promote freedom of speech. Number 3, I said that we have to leverage traditional and new media channels. Number 4, I said that we lend support to civil society organizations. Number 5, I said that we have to learn to engage elected representatives directly. Number 6, listen to the news. And number 7, I said that live as a responsible citizen. So to conclude, I say that your participation and involvement in elections, in politics and in governance is so crucial, because not doing so and leaving it in the hands of a few people could lead to catastrophic consequences. And Plato noted, he said, one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors, unquote. And with that, I'll bring my presentation to a close, and thank you all for your attention.
Right. Oh, thank you.